introductions from our end, and we'll go from there.
All right, so I'm just going to make some qualifying comments before we start this. This is a committee meeting. It is not a board meeting. It is open to the public out of a need for transparency, and unless you were on this committee, you would be sitting with the community, and there is no opportunity in this meeting for official community question and answer. Like, you would want to save those for either after or at our regular board meeting.
There is no quorum at this point where a vote can be
Right.
held.
There's nothing happening but information. All right. Introduction.
Fantastic. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Wills with Plant Moran Cressa. With me is
Doug Smith with Plant Moran.
And Samantha Wild with Plant Moran.
So back in our previous work session update, we kind of talked about the process of issuing the request for development or the offering memorandum. The process we use to kind of take it and really push it out to the marketplace. We've got an update on some of those slides. The proposal we did receive included some site plans, some elevations of proposed housing. At the end of the meeting, you'll see there's still next steps. We want to hear from the full board. We want to hear from neighbors. We want to hear from the township. What you're going to see is initial offerings and ideas, so nothing's finalized. So again, tonight we're not looking for any decision-making, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Ms. Wild.
So this is just kind of an overview of our marketing process from the last time that we spoke with you all. So we had the initial launch in early September where we sent out the marketing to the broad group that we had queried. We went on Zillow, looked at developers in the area. We reached out to a couple specific developers that we knew would be kind of a good fit within Redford. We did the second launch on the 10th of October, the final launch on the 19th, and then received offers on the 25th. So we received 3 offers from Infinity Homes, VR Homes, and then Jefferson Place Development.
And not just residential, but I know we also reached out to Presbyterian Village of Michigan. We also reached out to Lutheran Church Homes, potentially other than single-family residential. What they've said right now, the current market does not support a high-density townhome or retirement-type community, kind of based on what they've done recently in the areas. We've also reached out to the township, asked, hey, would you be interested in purchasing this property? They said we're all set. We gave them the opportunity, and obviously we've been talking to Mr. Dennis on a regular basis, and a lot of subsequent meetings with him. And then lastly, we did receive a call from National Heritage Academies, who is a charter school authorizer. They would be interested in not purchasing it to build a building, but potentially for athletic fields. So at the end of the day, the township says, well, we're not, right now it's zoned special purpose, and it's going to be feature zoned for residential development, not for another entity, such as National Heritage or the other group. So not just to Samantha's point, we didn't just reach out to a couple of developers, we really reached out to over 150 different developers that have done work in the township, in Western Wayne County, as well as Southeast Michigan. So
Developers that might have been interested in the property for something other than home.
Correct. Okay. Correct. And again, we thought that was the best due diligence, because at the end of the day, board members said, well, did you think of something other than not single family? The answer is yes. Obviously, the township wants to see single family as part of their master plan. But really, at the end of the day, we did receive 11 downloads from the offering memo. And as Ms. Wild mentioned, we did receive 3 proposals, which we're going to go through kind of one by one, and then go from there.
So the offer criteria and ranking, we kind of came up with 5 criteria here that you see on the screen, and then ranked each of the different groups that we got offers from. So 1 is marginal, 2 adequate, and 3 is strong. The criteria that we looked at were the conformity with just understanding the physical constraints and conditions of the site, track record with similar sites, so how long they've been in business, have they done this before in similar markets, or are they in Redford right now? Their financial wherewithal, their benefit to the school district in terms of kids into the schools, and then field terms and conditions. So that was kind of more how they met the terms within the OM. So you can see.
I think the benefit to school is really important, because at the end of the day, if it's 35 units or 45 units, they're anticipating there's going to be an FT or full-time equivalency of a student coming out of this development. So what is your foundational allowance on a regular basis?
9,150.
So if you have, let's say, 30 homes and you have 1 FT kind of grades K through 12, that's 30 times 9. So you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars yearly potentially of FTEs that would come to the district going forward. So that's that one thing that we thought, what is the price market point about development? Because it's easy, hey, we're gonna build $600,000 homes, guess what? Young kids don't typically come with those types of homes. Does that fit in the contextualism of the township and the neighborhoods, et cetera? So again, this was just kind of a way of saying, you know, what is the strength of each of the firms? And then as we go through the rankings, you'll kind of see the different thoughts of each of those developers. First one, Infinity Homes.
So Infinity Homes had an offer price of $100,000 for the land. They proposed 54 lots on the site and then have a detention pond, which is required up here on Bulman. So
You also see they're extending Gaylord all the way through. And so remember, this is their initial offer. We typically recommend second and third floor, second and third highest and best offerings. We want them to talk to the township. There's brownfield developments available for infrastructure. So right now, this is their first pass, like, hey, we think that's roughly 54 homes. We've got some green space with a retention pond. To really address the stormwater management, which we just talked about is a huge expense regardless of who develops this property. Then obviously Gaylord, so you kind of have back-to-back lots for this development going forward. Architecturally?
yeah, so they proposed 4 different housing types. So this is their first housing type, which is the Southampton. And this group did a kind of a similar development in Wayne just recently. So they've been in business for over 20 years and had quite a few typologies for us to look through. So this is Southampton, Carlisle, which is 2-story.
One of the things you see is the inclusion of brick and siding differences, different elevations.
The Fairfield, also 2-story, and then the York.
A lot of these designs are they're not really geared towards the 55 and older crowd. These are master suites are upstairs, bedrooms upstairs as well, so you're kind of looking at that 1.35 kid per housing unit with younger families, et cetera, going forward.
The first one was basically a ranch. It was the same story, right?
Correct.
Yep, there you
That's
go.
what's
Ranch
in
and
the-
then 3 other.
Yep.
There's a few 2-stories, you know, there are 2-stories mixed in, because I have one, but, yeah.
So this is one of those things, like, for instance, when you see, I don't have my laser pointer, but would these potentially be the single story? These are the 2 stories because they're kind of facing each other, so you have this, you know, contextualism. But again, this is just the initial passes, and we just want to get your thoughts. First on layouts, we're going to stop here and say likes, dislikes, thoughts, comments, and again, we're just here to listen, so.
Well, I'll say first of all, $100,000 is a quarter of what it's worth. That's ridiculous that they would lowball that. And 54 houses back to back. I'll be frank, hell no.
Okay.
Not from
Duly
this
noted.
board member.
Well, what I think it may have been you guys that mentioned, instead of taking Gaylord all the way through, a cul-de-sac might be better from a neighborhood perspective and also from a living standard as well too, so you're not getting through traffic, right? Because there's no road there right now.
Correct.
And have it,
Right, and then ultimately Gaylord's gonna end at Turchin anyway.
Correct.
They're gonna be stopped by,
you would
The
cul-de-sac that to keep, so that basically in that new road, that new stretch of Gaylord, it would really, the only people who would necessarily be going down it and back would be people who live there or are visiting there. So it really cuts down the cut-through type traffic on that road. That normally would, if it's not there now, it would
Yep.
create additional.
And you're going to see as you go through the different iterations, different developers, they each have a different approach. So
Yep.
one of the things we said is you need to comply with the township requirements, which we presented.
right,
Just,
It's done.
they're here, they're trying to maximize it, obviously.
absolutely.
And the same thing on the pricing, again, that's their initial offering. If the township has X amount of dollars for brownfield, that increases that pricing. Some of it is, do you actually get a price per house every time it's built? I mean, these are all the things that are kind of negotiated, so appreciate the feedback for this site.
When did we find out about the brownfield? Or when did they find out?
Well, we've got a meeting with the township shortly after this meeting, the board meeting, so we want the whole board to see this first before we kind of go to the township and talk about theirs, and then the question is, what's that? We gotta get through it and finish this. No, we want to actually present to the full board, I think, at the November 14th meeting.
Okay.
And then after that, somebody in the township say, the board has seen this, by the way, they're not taking any action. So that's another opportunity for community members to see it from that perspective as well.
Does it help if one of us is there?
I think it'd be very helpful if a board
The 14th.
member would be there to say, hey,
No, the
Around
14th is
what-
when they're presenting to us.
Previously for something?
Right, yeah.
Then there's a
Oh,
be there.
Into something.
Right.
You'll be there.
The township is
more December.
Okay,
It's a
that's what I
Saturday.
want. I want to make sure,
Sixth,
yeah, that the
December.
township board
Is it Tuesday or Thursday?
has
Pretty sure.
a Redford Union board member representative there.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, but again, we'll work with superintendent with.
I'll go with you.
Potentially
I
to
want to be too.
help with
I
that.
can go by myself.
All right, elevation wise, any thoughts, dislikes, likes?
Yeah, I mean, those are,
Virgin.
I think those look,
Well, the
Close
township
enough.
will have the final approval on what they want. Like, they can say they want these 4 houses, but the township has the final approval, same with the amount of lots.
So the good news is, this right here actually complies with the number of lots allowable.
Okay.
Architecturally, these all 4 would actually comply with what the township would want, so they have like certain percentages of,
Well, that's,
yeah, so.
yeah.
same thing with the road. The township might say they don't want it, or they do want it. They might require them to put that in
That is
for a
correct,
fire department.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And then cul-de-sacs are a great idea, I've seen it oftentimes. When
I think you guys made
You
proposed.
go
I thought
from
it
a
was a great
44
idea.
to a 60-foot wide to get the fire
I
truck
mean, you
radius, so.
absolutely
yeah.
have to do something.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Okay.
put- Yeah.
Speak.
Yeah, like,
So
I think
Infinity
the
Homes, just-
the homes look like they'll fit well into
Yeah.
what,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
So the next offer is from VR Homes. So we found this developer through, he's actually doing other lots in Redford right now. He's completed 18 homes in the past 3 years. So his plan is a little bit different. He's got detention ponds and walking trails in the center. This would not go all the way through, and his proposal is 45, he said 42 to 45 lots, subject to approvals. He offered 0, just because of site development costs.
You just
So-
want this to give them.
Well, so to meet that low $200,000 price point, just for him, he can't make, he can't make land work at that price.
And some of it is like how fast you have what's called patience equity. So if he does 10 homes a year over 5 years, is that acceptable? Or do you want to put in the purchase agreement, hey, you have to complete 50% of the homes in the first 2 years and then another 50? I mean, those are the things like
And then-
the county proposals.
What's the like road access there?
Actually, so there is no road access. So you have basically
face-
Delaware,
Yeah.
so they all face out. This is a green space, so there's a walkway here, here, there, and there.
And then this is water,
easements.
like a detention
It's like an
pond,
easement.
so walking
Right.
path, and he, Doug and I had a call with him, and he mentioned that, he could maximize a lot further, or maximize land further, but thought that this was important to the community.
So the middle is a retention pond.
Retention pond, walking
Trail,
trails.
walking trail around it.
Yep.
So this is one of his recently completed homes in Redford, and this is the style that he would be doing in terms of the single story. And then for the double story, this is, he doesn't have a photo, a rendering, but these are the elevations for the 2-story.
Again, the elevations are going to be largely controlled by
Township.
the township. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Very few windows in the house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
No, I'm just, I know the house that he built.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly.
some of my too. I know exactly where the house is.
Yeah. What is your expensive nowadays?
So offer 3 is Jefferson Place Development. This is a developer who just recently completed a development in Trenton. So he is partnering with a home builder, he's the developer, and he would be doing 38 lots for $114,000. Kind of the same as the last one. They'd have a walking trail and sort of a park space, and then 38 lots.
So people would have their own backyard, but then there would be additional spaces in the middle.
Correct, so you have your, I think it's 60 by 110 or 120.
Yeah, something like
So that'd be your
that.
fenced or landscaped area, then there's the green space. So some of it is, again, try not to maximize the site, try to hit the price point of the houses that you want for those younger families. Again, and again, the substantial amount of stormwater management. So actually I talked to Greg Heron at Hennessy, he's like, this is like a 6, almost 7-figure site development just to get the retention right.
Yeah.
Because that's how antiquated, I think is the word we want to use, not mess. But,
Antiquated.
so at the end of the day, there's a lot of requirements for this particular to address that before they offset into the neighbors.
And then, so he did not provide elevations, but this is what their group just finished in Trenton. So these were closer to the low $300,000 price point. Again, he has not given elevations, but
It doesn't look like he's offering a single story at all.
I mean, that's something that we could go back to him on, but this is just what was built in Trenton.
I think to your point, again, if there's something, so, you have these single-family homes here, does it make more sense that these are the 2 stories here, and then again, depending on the setbacks, how architecturally does it fit into the neighborhood?
Right.
So I'm just confused, so if this person put in a bid for development, why don't we know what houses they'd be proposing here? Like, why is it based off of the Trenton?
He just hasn't provided elevations.
So we'll, at the end of we've got a lot of follow-up questions, so we've
Okay.
got these on Thursday, we said, okay, we want to give the committee an update.
Yeah.
Like, we think, here's the bandwidth, it's $100,000 to $114,000. You can go from anywhere from 38 up to 54. Here's the next series of questions, like, do you have single-family options? We'd like to see those before the next board meeting. Hey, Mr. Brownfield, what kind of credits or tax, availability of funding is available that we can go back and have second round of offerings, things of that nature, so.
I mean, based on earlier conversations, I still feel the same way that, looking at like a lower price point on
Yeah.
housing.
Yeah.
and feeling like
I mean, I'll be honest with you, that,
that's not compatible with the.
it's not coming, right. The houses in our neighborhood are selling for 150,
150 to 200.
Yeah, I mean, 300, you're pricing young families right out, and 2, that's not what the market value. That is what our neighborhood looks like, but I don't like 54 houses, so.
Right.
Take the first house.
So let me
Third
be honest with you. Even, so the first subdivision we moved into up in Oakland County was similar to that first. So there's some ranches, there's some raised ranches,
Right.
there's, a lot of this is, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it's kind of, I wouldn't say cookie cutter, but there's certain,
Here's 4 floor plans.
yeah, I mean, they all,
Well, I mean, yeah.
when you look at a lot of these newer subdivisions in that price range, when you used to build them.
When the Amber Brothers in the 60s, 70s, 80s were doing the Redfords and so the good news is, if you like certain site plans, then we go back to the developers and said, hey, give us your single floor option. We
Right.
want some more contextualism across the Delawares and across the other streets, so we're not looking at 2-story.
They're not having to recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
These guys all have kind of pulled from the same kind of range of
Sure,
plans.
and
so-
that's not my issue. I'll start with my first concern is, and you can tell me if this is normal. Okay, so we got a market value of this property, and one bidder isn't financially sound enough to pay for the property, and the other 2 are offering us about a quarter of what it's worth. And I get that there's other costs, right? It's a business. But let's be realistic. If they sell 38 homes at $300,000 a home, they made a crap ton of money and they lowballed us, and we have not been good stewards of our property. And so my first issue is with the offer prices. I'm not comfortable with those offer prices at all, just personally, and I feel like
And I agree with you.
I feel like I am doing my constituents a disservice if I accept an offer price that low. Now, of site plans, that's ideally the kind of site plan I like. I can personally live with having to drive by that every day. However, I know realistically $300,000, and I've said this right from the start, you can't bring in homes that are selling for 3 times what the homes in our neighborhood are selling for, because what's going to happen is they don't sell them, right? So you get half-built homes or vacant homes, and nobody wants to see that. So those are my first feelings about these 3 proposals.
But again, we're just.
And then
here for
there's a
update.
ton of other questions I have about this whole process.
Sure.
I'm sorry, you mentioned the initial price target, the target range before. Can you reiterate that again?
So one of the things we looked at, so this was about 5-6 months ago. What were interest rates 4 or 5 months ago?
Right.
So you guys
They
were
a lot
now in the
less.
7s?
Yeah, they went up again today.
So, here's the problem, like, every quarter point, you're dropping about $50,000 per price, so we had like a 300,000 to 350-ish range. This was a year ago when we first started talking about it. And the other question was, how much stormwater management do you want to maximize or optimize the site? So the problem is the less density you get, the lower the price. And I can appreciate kind of like
So the
38
reality
homes
was-
X, they're making $9 million.
What was the target, we were targeting houses 200?
200?
About 200,000, yeah, we're not talking $300,000 houses that they're gonna build on this.
Yeah.
And because I think the developers obviously they would know the area well enough to not even try that, right? So.
Right.
That's the thing is the one that offered zero, I don't think it was based off of financial viability, it was based off of that project, right?
was
For
based
them
off
to
the
make
time.
money off the project, yeah, and to make it worth their time. I mean, it's a total payback analysis for them, and you know, I mean, that's not our problem,
Right.
but that's what they're saying. I don't think it has anything to do with financial viability. It's whether or not it's worth their time.
That's a good point. And I think, just to put
Yeah, help me
everything you
understand.
said, I agree, I understand the concerns. With regards to Jefferson Place development, they're set up a little different. They are a developer. They're gonna come in and put the improvements in place for these lots, and then they have a partner, New Century Homes, who's gonna come in and actually build them pursuant to a contract. So the reason that we didn't get information regarding, or any specific information regarding their homes is that he hasn't really tightened up his agreement with that
It
building.
was the same as at the dance.
Yes.
Okay, I get it, I get it.
Okay,
And we
makes
just
sense.
wanted to
Yeah.
show you that they have done it in the past.
Yeah.
So trying different market, different price point, and they understand that as well, but more just in terms of track record, like,
Gotcha.
you know, they have built houses.
So what I'm hearing is that while the property is in theory worth $500,000, we were never gonna sell it for $500,000.
Actually, I don't think whoever says worth 500,000.
I believe in September you gave us.
It was
Three.
between 4 and 5.
4 or
Yeah.
5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could still get
And,
there,
and
depending on what the
way
township
back when we
says.
met in this room in the middle of COVID, we had talked about 700,000 or 800,000, but the economy has changed since.
But
then.
Evelyn, if they go to the township with this, they go to negotiation, so if it's $3 million for development,
Yeah, no,
for
I
the
get it.
retention system, if it comes in
I
less,
just need to wrap
then
my
we
head
can,
around
you can ask
the
for
fact
more money.
that It's a quarter of what we.
It is a quarter of what we thought probably a year and a half to 2 years ago, and then even 6 months ago, we're like, okay, we're coming out of COVID, things are going great. And all of a sudden here, Amazon's basically not finishing their distribution center at 8 Mile Lane, the one in Grand Rapids is getting canceled, you're like, okay, guys, recession's here.
Yeah.
So the question is, interest rates are here, cost of materials are actually coming down, but then, again,
Borrowing is, yeah.
Borrowing and cash flows and all that, that's that kind of next step.
Three-quarters point today.
So here are, because I've been going, in preparation for this meeting, I've had like 100 million thoughts go through my head. And a couple of my concerns are, say we sell this property to Jefferson Place Development. What prevents Jefferson Place Development from selling it to somebody else who builds a charter school on it?
So the way the offering memo works is you'd have a purchase agreement that is dedicated for residential construction only,
And we get first right,
and you have clawbacks, even better.
okay,
If you don't complete X between Y, the property actually reverses. We did that for Warren Con,
okay.
where the developer didn't have 50% of the infrastructure in the first 8 months after approval, it reverted back to the district at no cost. So guess what they got? They got us through with all the improvements that they went and turned around, sold it 3 years later when the economy got better,
Right.
and actually got more money. So this is that timing piece of infrastructure versus when construction happens, but the purchase agreement would have it dedicated for residential development.
That goes to the township also.
That, what protects us from them saying they're gonna build 38 lots? So I'm assuming that the township has to, if they have to tell the township we're gonna build 38 lots, and that prevents them from building 60, right?
Right.
Or whatever the
Yes.
maximum is. Because what I don't want is for us to go to our community and our constituents and say, this is what's happening, and then something completely different happened. Or halfway through this project, it's not developed, or the houses are sitting empty. That, nobody wins in that situation.
No, so one of the things you actually included in the purchase agreement is the proposal, which shows the 34 sites,
Okay.
the timing, the schedule, the implementation, the rollout, again, how fast.
Put time into it. Okay. Thank you.
So I have 2 questions.
Sure.
With the way that things are changing over time in terms of the price point that we can get for the property, what's the projected outcome of like, real estate market crashing? To what extent would that reverse the trend?
This is not like the 2000, so I'll give you a live example. We did a real estate assessment for a district that's sitting on 19 acres of green dirt. Like, we need to sell it. Like, why? Because we want the money. Like, okay, well, you're in the middle of a housing recession, you're gonna get pennies on the dollar. I said, why don't you just wait? I don't know how much your cost to mow it, 15 grand a year maybe, 10,
Snow, everything,
Snow.
all in, that's without insurance, we're saying 40, 50, 60,000 somewhere.
Yeah, so the question is do you need the money to offset something else? So the question is, if you're trying to maximize the dollars, probably now is not the best time to sell it. But you said, hey, residential market is still strong, taxable values are still up. Even though there's a recession, it was slowing down, but it's not like the 2008, 9, 10 housing crisis where it was like people lost 40% of their values. If anything, like now's almost the perfect time to actually construct, even though the interest rates are higher, because people are paying so much right now for rental that if you look at a conversion to a mortgage, they're actually like better off buying something.
But by the time the houses are built, I'm not sure that's sort of.
It's a funny thing, what they're calling for is a recession, but it's a recession that, what they're saying is a recession like a lot of us haven't seen before. They still expect a high employment rate.
Yeah.
They don't see the employment rate going much, beyond 4%. It's just more of a cooling period right now is what they're seeing. Things coming back more to normal like they were pre,
Say 2015,
yeah.
2014-ish.
I've read the article several times just to contemplate it, because they keep talking recession, but it's not a boogeyman recession. It's not like we got hammered in 2009, 2010. I think it's more of a slowing down. Hopefully.
If you have material
that's
pricing
what-
escalation 20% year over year,
Yeah.
like you just can't sustain that. So guess what? The cost of lumber is actually going down because there's less construction building,
Yes.
which is great for the builder because he can actually buy it and actually fit the financial models. But I think to your point, so let's say the board took action in 6 months or 12 months. Part of the responses back to the three developers is how fast can you actually anticipate building these? So again, they would know the markets, they would know the price points, say, hey, we'll have 50% built in the first 18 months, we'll have the others in the next 2. I mean, those are just timing mechanisms. Douglas.
Oh, just a quick point, a couple things about the price. I know we kind of identified that $4,000 price range for points, and we said, I'm not sure we said it clearly, but we said a bulk sale of these lots is probably going to result in a much lower price. So BR Homes has been buying lots from the township and sold 18 over the last 3 years. He's been paying $7,000 to $10,000 per lot, okay, which is probably market. I mean, that's where there's a lot of precedent. In this case, as Paul has said repeatedly, you have a lot of infrastructure costs you have to put in up front to actually build a house first. So I think this is first cut at pricing. I think we can do better on pricing. I think the most important thing that we can do is pick someone that is going to get this done. As a wherewithal to ride through, a recession potentially, because really the value in this for all of you is getting those rooftops finished. And if we have to partner with them a little bit, I mean, it's up to you, obviously, but if we have to give a little bit on price, potentially, or the price we think this might be worth in a huge booming market, it may be worth it to get someone in there right now, help them be successful and actually deliver these houses so that you guys start to get that flow.
So by comparison, Doug, if you use the 45 lots times what his individual lots are, you have $415,000 if you bought them one at a time.
But
I do like that he's working in a.
But there's no infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the next one, might be-
That's a
lot of risk. I mean,
Actually,
once
you can.
put all the infrastructure in,
right.
put $1 million
That's what
in
patients are.
infrastructure, and guess what? No buyers show up,
Yeah.
you still got $1 million out
Yeah.
the door.
He
You're
can't
carrying.
even offer, he can do 7,000, he's done 18 homes in the past 3 years.
That's,
So
it
if you're
takes
doing
a long
7,000, that would be one at a time.
Remember I mentioned patients equity, I mean, you brought up a great point. Could you sell them lot by lot? We have some districts that actually do that. But again, it's lot by lot. So
Oh,
again,
yeah. I mean,
Very slow.
Takes years.
I think
Yeah,
that he's done
decades.
18 homes in 3
Years.
years is fairly decent for, I mean, it doesn't sound like he's a big.
He's not one house at a time.
About
Just
that,
like, He's
I
still
get
wrapping
it,
up the
but when you
cockiness.
think about like a one-man show being able to get that done, right? That's not a bad deal. I like the fact that he is currently working in the community, because he understands how it works, right?
Yep.
My concern would be his financial viability.
Financial viability,
Here's the bigger
Mike?
thing, Evelyn. He's buying houses that are already connected to the sewer, water, and
Yeah.
everything. He's
Sure.
buying empty lots that
Right.
they tear the house down.
Listen,
Like the one on Kinlock, he did.
Mhm.
And so when you gotta go put a $4 million retention system,
oh yeah,
and if he has to do the work,
that's why I'm concerned.
it could take him 2 years to get the
That's why I'm
retention
concerned
system.
about it.
Through ego, through all the
Like
permitting,
the-
and financing.
The big con for me is his financial, because he's small.
So
Um,
the other perspective that keeps going through my head is timing as well, like. There is obviously an obligation to the neighborhood around it too in this aspect. Dragging this thing out over 3 years and constantly having construction in the area is taxing to the neighbors as well, right?
Agreed.
So when you're building 18 a year, how long, I mean,
Right.
18 a year for him would be a lot.
Yeah.
It ends up stringing out that.
18 over
6
3, so 6 a year, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't,
That's
I
a
don't
lot
wanna
of
put that
I
much.
come as a kindergarten and graduate,
Yeah,
next year,
I mean-
that's how it's done, so.
Still got lots.
He's built, I mean, he's only had, and he didn't have 18 to just start with. It took him
Right.
3 years. He's picked these up periodically.
Sure.
He's sold
Yeah.
one, he's bought one. I mean, what he did say that I thought was very positive is that I've sold these before I've had it finished, every one of them.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, you'd be surprised, like the Redford housing market, you'd be surprised.
Yes.
It's- no,
Like,
It's still moving.
The
Yes.
house across the street from me didn't even get the sign in the yard, it sold that fast.
Yeah.
It's smaller than mine, and it sold for like 170,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a 5-bedroom on Delaware behind me that took a little longer because it was closer to 200, but it sold really quickly. I mean,
Nice,
I see
small,
the signs
bedroom
go up,
community,
right, I
nice
see the signs go up
very
and
homey.
the signs come down, and, you know, because, and that was over the summer because I was looking at the housing market for my mother, hoping to, you know, get her into my community so I could take care of her easier. And then she decided not to buy a house, she decided to rent an apartment because she's 77. Yeah.
Might not see that 30-year mortgage, through.
Well, and honestly, you know, we talked about interest rate, their home in Illinois, they were paying 2.5% on, and they're not getting 2.5% now.
Right now.
And they're in their late 70s, early 80s, they don't want to maintain the property, and they're two little old ladies about this big that walk with canes.
Again, let's look at interest rates though in the 80s and 90s compared to now, right? It's still, when you're looking historically speaking, 6 and 7% is still,
Credit card.
those, you haven't seen interest rates like that since the early 70s.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they got,
Well, I'm sorry, as they were coming down, we went to 6, and we went past 6 and came up, but.
Yes, sir.
Question on this. The open floor plan in the middle,
Mhm.
who's responsible for it?
That's a great question. So, we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet, if it's gonna be an association, or if it's I think it would be an association as part of that.
So would everybody in the neighborhood be allowed to go there, or is it just the members of the housing association?
I would think there'd be a pass-through through both neighborhoods to get you up to Puritan, and
I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
great.
I like this
I
design,
like that.
the best, but I don't want to see overgrowth in the middle, and then
No.
all of a sudden Miles has to get out with his weed whacker and cut the grass.
you just put some grass killers, round it down.
Well, it's just shaking.
Or watch the four-wheeler tractor. That's why I'm just curious on that,
Yeah.
you know, who's responsible for that? I mean,
It's a great question.
Typically homeowners associations, so it would be.
but
If
then
you
a lot of
want to
times they
do,
don't want you to walk
trash,
through it.
each house would have to chip in $50 a year, typically having in a subdivision that was like that, you had a.
But I think Jeff's point, like, I could see them like, hey, I'm gonna put a gate here and a gate here for egress only, and that's why it's just the neighborhood versus a true walkthrough. So
Right,
those are some of the finer details you wanna get.
Three-hole golf course would be in the middle.
so,
Well, exactly.
so in your dealings with the township, let's say, I mean, we own the property, it's zoned residential. Let's just say, and you can tell me whether or not you think they're open to this, we kept the property. And we converted it to an agricultural CPE program.
So you'd actually have to go through
You think the township would
site.
shut us down? Right,
First of all, you have to go through site plan approval.
right.
Since there is no agricultural zoning currently in the township, you'd have to rezone the township.
So if we were to think about that, there's a long process involved in that,
Expensive process.
and an extensive process.
With it being zone special use right now, what does that permit?
Educational, institutional, nonprofit type activity. But again, agriculture is actually kept out of that special purpose, so you couldn't have
So we
livestock.
could put
You
but
couldn't
we
have-
couldn't put
You have
an urban
garden
farm.
You could garden bed.
So can you have small greenhouses?
You could have small greenhouses.
So that, because
Okay,
the
so-
Wyandotte Agricultural CTE program, we're not talking cows.
Right, yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
talking like,
We're talking raised beds, we're
right,
talking,
teaching
small
them how to
greenhouses.
Water
grow
runoff.
plants
be
and
responsible
vegetables.
for it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Discharge fees.
Discharge fees, water runoff, you have no water, you have
There's a
no
lot of-
electrical in the property. So you'd have to get all that
So-
brought in.
was all of the electrical and water taken out?
Usually capped into the property lines.
When the building,
Yes, but the
Oh,
sewer
yeah.
line, they can make you do Wayne County. Because you're gonna run off any
You have
four
drainage.
directions. Drainage issue's gonna go into one of the
right,
four
I'm
ways.
just, laying out.
So the way Wayne County's looking, they want us, or whoever builds it, to fix all
Right.
their problems right there.
Yeah,
So if
of
we
course.
put up a CTE
Has to
thing in there, like you're talking about, Wayne County's gonna go to you and say, before I approve it,
Right.
you're gonna fix everybody's
So here's the
problem.
other issue.
I'm
So
tired of
they're gonna calculate whatever you put there, number of occupants, so you're gonna have parking. So parking lots, the discharge for that, and then
Okay.
I think there's actually limitation of how much or gardening, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
but that's something, if you're interested in doing that, we could investigate further. I just know that the jump, there's a lot of site development costs. there.
realistically, we would need to fund it. And at this, that, we would have to seek grant funding honestly, the reality from a financial point of view is that it needs to pay for itself if we do something like that.
Which, on that note, does it permit athletic fields? Right, okay, because that's been a concept of
By the way,
raise that
for
there's.
Redford Union,
Redford Union, oh,
so if you switch ownerships, so.
that's what I mean, so if we retain it, right, and we have it as a green space, and there's a small gardening program that we use for our schools, and we have athletic fields,
Straight
We can
grass,
do-
whatever.
right, and we can,
Baseball diamonds, sure.
we can rent, because there are, Wayne recently did a redevelopment where they got $800,000 and redeveloped a similar size, slightly smaller site, and they have, that's where the funding mechanism, right? The
Right.
pavilion and the athletic fields, and you can rent them out to soccer organizations, and you can rent out the pavilion, play structure, and then use for the district for the CTE program that would comply with the special use, because the challenge rate is if we're only getting $100,000-ish for the lot, and then we want to get some money into the annual fund through the students, but we also realistically know that if we're doing about 40 homes, how many kids are we actually going to, knowing that, honestly, right, because of the birth rates and because of how many kids go out of district, we can sit down and get more numerical about that.
But
But I just
80%
think,
of our student population are Redford kids.
okay,
So
but what percent of Redford kids go to Redford Union is the,
80% of Redford Union students live in the district.
but it's the
That's-
opposite direction that I'm interested in, right? It's how many, because it's the probability that a child who lives in one of these homes is gonna go to the district, not the probability that
I get
a
what
child
you're
goes to
saying.
Union.
I- I'm with that.
So, yeah, I think that's the other option that we've started exploring is keeping it and then having it be value added for the school district. Obviously, it has to pay for itself, and it has to be, doable and viable for us, because we don't have,
So I think,
We're not just rolling it.
no, and I
You
think
don't want life to be.
from previous conversations, you have a couple other properties that over the course of the next 3 to 4 years are gonna become vacated type properties.
Yeah.
So again, is
Right.
that, this was really, we consider this a pilot, let's test the market, let's see kind of what types of houses, number of houses, kind of densities, and then, where's the target price per house. So what you're seeing is here is based on interest rates, site development costs, number of optimizing the site, not maximizing, you're at that 114,000 initial offer. How much brownfield? So like to your point, if they got $2 million, that offsets what they can come back and say, we'll offer you X.
You can also get payback from every lot they sell.
We've done that too. Hey, for every house you get $5,000, and guess what? You sell 15. Hey, here's 250,000 or 300, whatever it is, that's closing that gap from that initial offer. So there's
Okay.
different strategies that I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to make a decision. I don't like, you're right, this was just like, even though we were a little shocked, like Thursday, we get these in, we're like, So you start doing some digging, it's like, well, interest rates are still climbing, feds are gonna hike it up this week. And the stormwater man, when I talked to the gentleman from Tennessee, he's like, this site has been touched in ever, so
Yeah.
there's no infrastructure.
Our neighbors could tell you that
so-
it hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
And they want it all fixed. It's not
Well,
like
it
you
has
can,
to be fixed. I mean, the reality.
And this gives an
is-
example, I mean, this gentleman, they're looking at this, huge retention, which is a great water feature, and they got some fountains in there and stuff like that with this walking track around it.
Great, but-
At the end of the day, like, that costs a significant amount of money, because that's not Phil, you just push around on the dirt, because you're gonna, so you gotta haul it off site and bring in fresh fill and all sorts of interesting stuff, so.
I think we also want to, after our next board meeting where we present this, or this gets presented, we're not, but have a more of an actual community conversation about the possibility of the
Right.
where there's a development that has fewer than the maximums and has
Yes.
green space still in the center and
So,
get answers.
so just for, I know that Jeff went, back into this, but just for our community. So the plan currently is to have a board workshop on Monday the 7th, where the whole board would see this, what we just
Next
saw, and they would get to ask their questions, right? And then, based on that, there could potentially be a recommendation made on the 14th to accept one of these, and then a vote still in December. We're still on that timeline, but we've added in a board workshop on the 7th.
That's from-
it's for McGowan. That's not,
It's not for this?
sorry.
We go,
I lied, I'm sorry.
we go.
The Monday the 7th workshop is for the McGowan developments.
I lied, just disregard that.
So it'll just
The
be, it'll be the 14th.
That's what I get for not reading my email completely.
From yourself to the board.
Disregard the 7th.
But I think it's important, you bring up a great point, because at the end of the day, tonight was more of just a feedback from the committee, from the administration team. Again, we're gonna want to hear from the neighbors in the township at subsequent meetings. And then ultimately, what does that due diligence period look like? Hey, it's 90 days, I have a hard deposit backs, I wanna get my financing, and why, like, what's that implementation schedule that we go back to each of the developers for? And then ultimately it comes down to, is this your final and best offer, inclusive of all these other things that we're hearing, with ultimately a recommendation to the board saying, here's option A, and here's the associated prices and considerations for it. And again, I've seen boards say, sounds great, we want this because it'll result in this, or hey, we're gonna hold off because of this, but we might want to do this. So
So are we still on target to potentially take a vote on this in the December board meeting? Okay.
but again, it goes back to, I know we said, again, if you're going lot by lot by lot, you probably get to that 350, 400, 400. If you're looking at a bulk sale, and the developer's gonna spend 6 to 7 figures putting in infrastructure, and you want that price point at 200,000, those are the 3 or 4 different factors that are kind of lowering that initial offer. But at the end of the day, if you said, hey, I want 400,000, guess what? You're gonna maximize property, they're gonna be 300, and then you'll get, but again, it might price you out from getting kids. So again, that's that
Right,
balance of,
Right.
Again, I think if you get 38 homes, even if you get 50% of the houses with kids, that's still hundreds of thousands of dollars every year
Sure.
in general fund dollars. Going forward.
Yeah, I think kind of the other way I look at it, Paul, a little bit is, it's potential for people within the, it's even potential for people within the township that like it, that want to move up.
100%.
And then that opens up some more of the starter homes within the
Absolutely.
township as well. And that generally, what you'll see is that brings in, that
Absolutely.
really, in my mind, that brings in more
We have to
kids.
move into the model.
Right.
We'll build the first one.
I
Test
said
it
when I
out.
bought my house and moved into it, I was not moving again unless it was heavily the old folks home, so
The one guy would
it's way too much work.
But no, like, bring up a good point, that's ultimately,
Children who need a house.
a lot of districts look at it, this would be secondary home that I've been living in the district for 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
I feel good, stable about my employment,
Yeah.
kids are getting a bit older, I want a newer house. I move in, I get backfill with the others that are in the 170, 200 range, and ultimately try to increase the enrollment. And even declining birth rates, try to offset that with some new homes. So.
And to Paul's point earlier, the Rent versus Buy, that's very real. The VR Homes group said that a lot of the buyers that he sees are renting elsewhere, and their mortgage is just cheaper.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Even at 600%, which is crazy.
yeah,
It's
so
like-
they're moving
Yeah, you
in.
think about that, you know, it's rent is, you know, it's $1,200-$1,300 a month for like Redford bungalows. And
Yeah.
it's like, you could get a mortgage for a whole
But they
lot
won't,
less
and they
than
won't give it
half
to you.
of that.
Yeah, you
Right, I
can't,
mean,
you can't
if you-
submit years of paying rent as evidence that you can pay a mortgage for half of
Right,
the cost.
right, I know, right?
Right.
I mean, it's crazy, it's crazy. That's why I have a married child and grandchild living with me.
You should charge $1,200 a month in rent.
Because they live with me because they can't afford $1,200 a month.
Sometimes they-
Free babysitting, free.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
Yeah. It is, there is an advantage to having my grandbaby every day.
Yeah.
So, kind of takeaways for us is, you know, obviously looking at initial offering prices, obviously understanding more of brownfield, so we'll reach out to the township and start those conversations. I think again, understanding the different prototype housing for Jefferson Place, again, more contextual with maybe some of these, this look here, or, you know, what does that mix look like? We know that this is,
Yeah, unless they're willing to.
that one's a no, in terms
Yeah,
of density.
Yeah.
Plus you don't want Gaylor to be the freeway through the,
right.
this one's got a little potential, but obviously you're looking at 45 lots, and then obviously this is probably more from a neighborhood standpoint, and again, just green space, and we'll have to understand what's the associations, again, what's the rules, regulations for accessibility.
And how confident are they that their builder is ready to partner with them?
They do
Yeah.
You know, what information do we have about past time? This might have been in there, I missed it, where a builder says, we're gonna have X% built in this time frame, and their track record on completing it on time.
So I'm gonna pick on, I know it might be hard to see this, but again, Infinity Homes founded in 2000. They've completed over 2,500 homes in southeast Michigan in the past 20 years. So they do about 100, 120 homes.
Okay.
Fully diversified development company, 200,000 is kind of the range. Green space, yes, they close within basically after 180 days with 90-day extensions. Again, 54 lots, but again, this is just their first initial, so if you said, hey, what if it's 38 or 40, you know, kind of incorporate more green space. You got the VR homes again, 2019. Really started with licensed in 2007, they've done 18 homes. So that's kind of that, like, here's the 2 to 3 years. So if he's thinking VR homes is phase 1 site development, back to your point, it's gonna take him 12 to 18 months just to get that retention through permitting and, so phase 2, construction of first half of houses, so probably that 1.5 to 2 years, and then 3 years they're closing out the second half. So within a 3-year window, again, this is first pass. And then again, they've not, like for instance, Jefferson Place, back to Doug's point, how comfortable are century homes, and then ultimately, you know, what can they do going forward, so.
Just thinking about the bond progress and as we would get to more specifics or become interested in a particular developer, to have some sense of how much they've complied with past timelines they've.
So here's some of it too. So when you're looking at a site like this and you have that site development up front, that's money coming out of his pocket initially. So the sooner they get done with site development and then start finishing off lots, that's when the cash flow starts for them and they start recovering those
So
costs.
you're saying there's an incentive for them.
There's a huge financial incentive for that. Huge.
So can we go back to that, like one of those first pages where you had the numbers, 3, 2, 1 numbers? Okay, so what's this last one? Deal terms, conditions, schedule, due diligence?
So that's kind of what Paul just went through.
It's
You saw
TBD.
a lot of yellows on
Okay,
it.
okay.
So schedule was not, you know, that
So
wasn't all
obviously
built
we can't
on.
rate them on that.
Financial wherewithal, their commitment from the builder, like those types of things, we felt that was lacking in every proposal.
Yeah.
And those are the type of things that we would, you know, want to bring into alignment based on feedback today, pricing, that kind of stuff. And like you said, when are they going to have all these homes complete? What is the benefit of doing so? So yeah, we felt like that was kind of the weak point for all the groups.
But, you know, we will, in the next round of negotiations, we will start to ratchet up our expectations with regards to those details. And, you know, if one person comes back and says, hey, I'll do X, and we're like, whoa, that's right, that's fine. We'll challenge the others to raise the bar. And we'll do the same thing for price.
Right.
So it becomes a process of, let's do a hybrid, let's hybrid, and see what each of them has to offer.
Take the best of all
High.
three.
Yeah,
Why don't you guess each other and
I mean,
see?
right, right.
You mark down track record and financial wherewithal on Jefferson Place because they use an outside builder.
So they've done over 200 homes, most recently the Trenton development. So I talked to Doug.
But they were in another business, weren't they? Century Homes. Century Homes does a lot of building through them.
Oh, yeah, they built hundreds of homes. So with Jefferson specifically,
But
How
Jefferson's
many-
more of a developer
yeah,
versus.
how many partnerships have you done with Century? And
Yeah.
that's
so
that.
that, I would be curious.
Yeah.
That's what I was just
Yeah,
curious,
yeah.
because I know Century Homes, if I'm not mistaken, builds more homes than Infinity
Infinity.
on a yearly basis.
Right.
So-
They're a public builder.
Yeah.
Right, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm just looking, trying to connect the dots. You penalize them a little bit by
Well, yeah,
by a
because-
point, because,
Hey Jefferson, let me see that agreement. I don't want to show it to you. You're not being considered.
no, but
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that's
just
a great point,
looking.
Jeff.
Yeah, it's because if you're looking at, track record for similar size of product, Century's probably the biggest one on the board, but they don't like to do the underground work.
No, that's fine.
Which
just-
is
they're
why
a
they
developer.
partner with somebody like Jefferson. because
Yes.
Yes,
Then they don't have the,
Like the one in Livonia.
right, that's exactly. yeah.
okay, right, yeah, because, I've been watching that, right, with the construction on Schoolcraft. My trip to work sometimes varies because I don't want to deal with construction. So, right over on Linden, between Inkster and Beach, Livonia Public Schools.
That's
did
the
a
old
similar
Linden
thing,
site. They got-
Right, they
yeah.
tore that building down, the homes are going up,
Their lots are sold out.
Their lots are sold out.
Their lots are sold out at
You know how many units are on
400,000.
there?
At 400,000, I don't know.
90.
Are you kidding me?
They maximize it. They got almost $800,000 for that site because the developers was, I'm putting $400,000 to $500,000 homes. I'm going to make it wall to wall and just ratchet up. And Livonia's like, I'll take the 118 kids that are
I
coming out of the
feel sorry
neighborhood.
for their neighbors though, because, what I'm seeing going up, right, doesn't look like their neighborhood, right?
No, it's totally opposite.
And let's face it, those
It
are nice
wraps around.
homes over there, but they're
It does.
not the current homes aren't $400,000 homes.
Is it higher than, is it a higher level of, so
Yes.
they're overpricing the neighborhood around?
Yes,
But they
are.
sold out.
Most-
They sold it out.
But they
So-
sold it out.
Okay.
Most of the, because I kind of took note a couple of times to look around. There are some single-story homes in the neighborhood. Most of the
Yes.
homes in the
Exactly.
neighborhood are single-story.
Yeah, I'll look at it.
Everything going in
That's a nice
is big, and I'm like, this doesn't fit with what is here already,
Fits with
right?
what people want now,
it's
though.
I know, it's the problem that I've been, preaching.
Is it a
Don't-
Bigfoot situation where there's this much lot and this
Yep.
much home?
Yes,
Yeah,
the lot's bigger than the house.
yeah.
Or the house is bigger than the lot.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna, if they're putting 90 homes in there, they're gonna be like, you're gonna be able to hear your neighbors snore.
Thick walls.
Yeah, right, oh. Oh, yeah,
Again, though,
$400,000.
with the developer, house builder relationship there, it comes back to doing what you do best, right?
Right,
And that really, that can maximize profits too. So. they're
Like I
willing
said,
to-
you can always go back to say you want a percent or an amount off every lot he sells. I mean, you might not get all your money up front, but
I'm
if you
okay
agree
with
to
that.
$10,000 a lot, I'm just picking a number.
I mean, I don't have a problem.
It's another
saying how low
$380,000 at the end of the
Right.
project coming back,
Right.
so then you're at your $400,000 to $500,000.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, just, it might be less, but I'm just using
Right.
an easy, a 10.
10 is a nice.
I have a
round
Redford
number.
education.
That's an approach we can take.
No, but I'm just saying, there's something that you
Yeah,
guys
I would be,
can do.
I'm
And that's
curious.
less upfront cost, they can pay it as they're recovering their.
Yeah.
Every time they sell a lot or build
Sure.
a house, they get a,
And from a financial standpoint, I don't have a problem playing the long game. The biggest thing for me is.
but there's a time frame on it, like you said. If they don't sell them out in this amount of time, you get the property back.
And I think well, I think where that plays in is if which I think there's a little risk of it, but if the economy rolls off again and we have a dramatic fall off again, and I think that's the only time it plays up. But I don't, everything I've read, I don't see the housing market doing that. I think it remains strong. I think the pricing softens a little bit. But in the current market, I don't think I think they're gonna sell it as quickly as they can, obviously to recover their investment. And we could, but for me, the biggest thing is that annual chunk that goes out the door for a vacant property, right? And the other thing that's just stuffing out of me is just the liability of a vacant lot. We don't have oversight over it, we don't have control over it, and there's risk there.
Well, and that's the concern that we've, talked about recently with the lot currently, and that it's being utilized probably without our permission for some things, and God forbid somebody get hurt on it, because then they say, well,
99 times out of 100, people are using it, they're being careful, they're being
Right.
courteous, but it's always that 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000.
Yep.
That happens, right? And there's potential liability there. Not that, and we are, obviously we have insurance, but we're part of an insurance pool. And ultimately, who pays into the pool, it's shared coverage by the 100 or so school districts that participate in that.
Do you appreciate all of the sort of processing you did of the criteria and the,
yeah, absolutely.
She does this for a living.
With the details, girl.
what, in terms of exploring, obviously there's all the follow-up to these proposals, and then in terms of exploring an option where the district keeps the land, I feel like I heard you say that that's also something that,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
in terms of putting together like a plan of what we want and how we do, like parking lot, or how we do an athletic field, a better playground structure. Like I said, there's a particular grant we have our eye on that is what Wayne used to develop a similar sized lot. There's a particular CTE, career technical program, that Wyandotte does that is really successful, and there's like forestry and botany involved too. So
this is 9 acres.
Yep.
So, is this the Ferndale one? Yeah. So this is also 9 acres. This was in Ferndale. This is 8 Mile Road across here. So this is the old Taft Elementary. They sold just half of it for townhomes, but preserved the park. Again, this is just a thought. Like you don't have to sell 9 acres. Like maybe you want to preserve 4 for yourself and just house it. I mean, these are like the hybrid models, if you will.
So this is like a really good, given the fact that we know we've got some other property in the near
Yeah.
future.
Yes.
But give you an example, like this is
The
what
second property.
Ferndale wanted to see, and so guess what? These 67 units sold out immediately.
Wow.
And so at the end of the day,
I've driven past this a million times.
yeah, so at the end of the day, this is Garwood Park. Like they have hockey, tennis, the whole, they actually made the development, put in the play structure for the neighborhood, which is kind of fun. This is a different one. This is Hickory Grove site. This really just maximized it, but they were really targeting the 55 and older crowd. To your point, I want to get the people out of the 1950s, 60s house with a 4-bedroom, 2-3 bath, so younger families can move into those houses. There's the Linden Room. So they actually only got $600,000 for this property. It was about 11 acres. But you can see, they got that very large retention pond, and then obviously kind of the straightaway, straight shot through.
Yeah, I think they've done a cul-de-sac too. I think that's the way the road is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to dump out. What's the main road on the south of it?
It's Linden and nothing up their side streets.
And then the side streets don't go out, but a lot of them dead end and don't go out to Schoolcraft in that neighborhood.
Okay.
So you have to go down Linden to either Inkster or Middlebelt.
But like I said, I mean, those are, like I said, we're taking a lot of comments from tonight, and then we'll say, okay, here's the next steps. And so one of those would be a 4th column, preserve it for something.
Yeah.
Do we have to do a retention pond? Do we have to do?
If you approve the site, so you put in a parking lot.
Yeah.
Or you put in something with
Play
drainage.
structure, yeah,
Play structure not necessarily, because it's not a fixed asset per se,
okay.
but if you put up a pavilion with
Okay.
concrete,
But yeah.
Wayne kicks in. There's some like area square
And that's
footages.
where we are doing the, hundreds
Great.
of thousands to $1 million or so dollars.
Anything, right now, my understanding, we're doing a project with Wayne Westland Schools, with the city of Westland and Marshall Program and the YMCA. If they do anything more than a half acre, you have to bring the entire site up.
Oh,
to go.
okay.
So
So that would be the other
a half
challenge.
acre is like
Yeah.
20,000 square feet, which is not a lot when we look
And a
at it.
half acre is a general rule of thumb. They come back after us before when we're under a half acre and said, well, we understand that this rule, but they
Okay,
can still
so
come back on you
bus
even
in
if it's
front of
under.
Wayne County, we did the bus in front of Hildreth. It was $130,000 extra. The last bond 9 years ago, just to put that bus loop in the front.
So that used to be all grass.
And we intentionally kept it under a half acre to do that, and then they still pull the loophole.
Right, and
There's
that's why we're
always
not
the-
doing the bus loop at beach.
Except for clause at the end, unless it's deemed whatever, so.
So that's the only problem is if we kept it and did it, if we put anything there,
Here, that's
We
way
have-
outside.
So we have, we'll
What we were
also,
originally thinking for
we'll have
rates.
Stuckey as
Yeah.
well. We'll have Stuckey as well, and that's a
And
bit of a
back-
quirky lot, right? Stuckey is pretty low.
Stuckey Square.
Stuckey.
No, but isn't it, as far as drainage?
Here, let me show you.
It's not,
Stuckey
it's
is a
waterfront.
All right, there's the Bulman site.
beach.
Waterfront.
Oh, okay.
So there's the
What are you
Bulman.
selling, lowway?
Right.
Water.
There's the Roosevelt
Swamp.
site, so that's one quasi downtown.
That's owned by half by the township.
Yes, you do not.
You sure?
That's sir.
You got title search and all this stuff? Because we haven't pulled it
I
yet.
think we.
Here's what we did.
own-
We split it with Mike Dennis to take the building down as long as they got half of it.
That's
Yeah.
good to know.
But
Yeah,
I'm just letting you know
It's
what
not-
it's titled what at. I have no clue, but I was at the meeting where
Yeah.
they paid for half of the demolition.
Perfect.
Miles was there,
'Cause there
and
was
Mike
some
Dennis
talk-
said was, it's,
We own half of it and you, which
there
half,
was some
top
talk
half,
of
bottom
them
half.
we own the half
dividing.
closest to the,
To the bus.
bus garage, the other half we don't.
Weren't they gonna develop it into like,
That's
historical something, I don't know.
Is that back?
That's
That's
back.
back. That's
7
an
acres?
odd little shaped
It is
lot.
an odd shaped lot, yeah, and then that's, yeah.
Peeler,
Beautiful.
Stuckey. So the problem with Stuckey is it's a flood.
No, it's not, it's waterfront.
Yeah, that's my understanding. That may be a hard one
Yeah.
to.
No, it's just gonna make a bigger water retention system.
Correct,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be hard, because they'll bring it up to, they can put it 2 foot higher,
My husband's.
but
grand-
it's just gonna be the retention system that's gonna take
Do
all
you
the
drive down
water.
Lasser off of Square Lake?
I know that area,
So
yeah.
this is Orange Lake. So there's literally a 40-foot swale waterfront property because the deck looks over the river. And, yeah, they actually increased this one here. There's actually a huge retention pond out in front as
Yeah.
well. So it goes back to Oakland County, Wayne. They all have brand new stormwater management plans that were adopted in the last 3 years.
My husband's grandparents lived across the street from Stuckey, and there were times that it was, you can't go play over there because it's just mud and
Yep.
water. And, he's 60 years old, so it's been a problem.
Those might be areas where we have to look at alternative uses, potentially
property,
split
yeah.
and figure things out.
Yeah.
Back is, again, potentially smaller lot.
Well, it kind of stuck back there in the middle. of
It
nowhere.
is,
Yeah, I mean, that's the
it's
thing,
a
too.
beautiful area
It
back in
is,
there.
it really
It is
is.
really, I was really struck by how
Yeah.
nice it is.
That's all we have for this evening. So
Okay.
just, again, wanted to give you
Thank
a board
you all.
update and
So,
administration.
so at the regular board meeting, we'll bring this presentation and the additional.
As much additional information as we can get, because at the end, you just want to do the update for the full board and say, what say you, for other board members, and then we'll come back in that December timeframe and say, based on everything we've heard, this is a potential recommendation for consideration.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
No,
Paul.
thank you. Thanks, Ms. Wild, great job.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Doug. Welcome.
Thank you guys, appreciate that.